She started talking. Her voice sounded friendly again, just like when I first met her the previous day. Danny, I'm sorry I had to spank you yesterday. You have to understand, you gave me no choice. I expect my nephew to be obedient and a good boy. You were neither of those things yesterday. Are you going to be a good boy from now on? Yes, Auntie. I replied. I didn't want any more spankings from her. They hurt a great deal. I never thought anything could hurt that much. I have laid out some fresh clothes for you, please change into them. I did as she told. The clothes were pretty much the same uniform I had on, just clean. I had a feeling that she wanted me to wear this full time. She helped me with my tie again. Her touch felt soft, very caring. It was hard for me to believe that this hand, so soft against my cheek, could be the same one that made my rear hurt so much. The pain from that spanking didn't fully go away yet. Auntie Christine, can I ask you a question? Yes, Danny, you may. I couldn't get over how friendly she seemed. Is my rear still red? Well, not as red as it was last night. Right now, it's a healthy shade of pink. It should stop hurting by tomorrow. Okay. I followed her downstairs for breakfast. I was starving. I couldn't believe that she cooked for me. On the table, there was oatmeal, bran muffins, a tall glass of milk and some cereal with milk in it. There was only one problem with that meal. I hated oatmeal, bran muffins, and milk. The cereal didn't have any sugar either. Even though I was hungry, I told her that I would prefer something tastier. Danny, you will eat what I give you. She said. But, what if I don't want to? I asked. I will make you want to. You can't make me do anything I don't want to do. I yelled at her. A stern tone came into her voice. Danny, do you remember what happened yesterday when you didn't want to wear those clothes? So, you wouldn't do it twice in a row. I was sure she was just trying to scare me. Danny. Don't test me. You know I don't bluff. That tone scared me. Without another word, I ate all of my breakfast. I guess it didn't taste too bad. It was then that I decided to try not to make her mad. I really didn't want a repeat of my last spanking. She called me back into the living room. I went in. Danny, we didn't get to finish our discussion the other day. I want to finish explaining what is expected of you. You will have some chores to do around the house. They are to be done without question. You are to take out the trash once a week, mow the lawn every 2 weeks, and do the dishes nightly. Yes, Auntie. I said. Now, I'm sure you are curious about your new school. I want you to read this. She handed me a pamphlet. This should tell you everything you need to know about the school. I want you to read it now. She left me alone with the book. It was really uncomfortable for me to keep sitting on the couch, so I took it back upstairs and started reading it on my bed, while I was on my stomach. On behalf of the staff of the Alabama Preparatory School, APS, we wish to welcome you to our school. In the following pamphlet, you will find a list of classes and rules that you will be required to obey. I suppressed a yawn, it was so boring. I turned the page. It had all the rules. There were 3 columns and the print was very small. There must have been over 300 individual rules. They were put into 3 categories. The first was labeled primary rules, the second, secondary rules, and the third was labeled required rules. The third column was entirely in bold type. The first column seemed pretty standard, about tardiness, backtalk, etc. The second was about homework, tests, etc. The third column was about the uniform, policy on cheating, swearing, etc. The next page listed punishments. It struck me as odd that though there was a minimum punishment for each class of rules, there was no maximum. For breaking a primary rule, there was a minimum of 10 strokes of the paddle over the pants from the teacher. For breaking a secondary rule, it was 10 strokes over underpants, also from a teacher. If a required rule was broken, the punishment was administered by the headmistress. The minimum here was 6 strokes of the junior cane on the bare bottom. Each punishment was accompanied by a note that had to be signed by a parent or guardian. The next page consisted of the methods of punishment. I started reading it. The aforementioned punishments are merely minimum suggestions and are not necessarily followed by all teachers. They have the right to spank any student with any implement ranging from a slipper to the senior cane or strap. The only requirement of the teachers in this case is that the minimum punishment be given as well. I didn't have to read any further. It was obvious that this school expected me to be perfect at all times. I also remembered what my aunt said about my grade requirements. They had to be straight A's. I rubbed my rear thoughtfully. I wondered if it would ever feel normal again, and not recovering from a spanking. With those thoughts in mind, I drifted off to sleep. A few hours later, I heard a knock at the door. "Danny, it's time for dinner. I know you are tired, but you have to eat." I didn't respond. Why wouldn't she just let me sleep? She knocked again, harder. "Danny, it's time to eat. Go away," I shouted. "Danny, since you are a little drowsy, I will overlook the fact that you gave me an order, but come downstairs immediately." "Fuck off," I replied. She stormed in and dragged me into her bedroom. She wasted no time pulling down my pants and underpants and bringing me over her lap. She started to lecture me. "Never, ever use language like that. Do you hear me? When will you learn to obey? Will I have to spank you every day this year?" She started spanking me with the hairbrush. Immediately, the memory of yesterday's spanking flooded back into my memory, and the memory of the pain receptors in my rear. It felt like she had just spanked me 10 minutes ago, when it was really a full day. I was soon in tears and promising her to be good from now on. "You told me you would be good yesterday." I don't think I left a lasting impression at all. She continued spanking me with that hairbrush. She even went down the backs of my thighs this time. An area that had never been spanked. It really hurt. I was bawling like a baby. Still, the spanking continued. Eventually, I just didn't have the energy to cry anymore. That's when the spanking stopped. "Now, will you obey me, Danny?" "Yes, m'm." I felt a mess. I don't know how I managed to say it, but I did. I was determined to keep my promise this time. I didn't know how many more spankings I could take. "Now, come down for dinner. It's a vegetable medley, all your favorite foods. Peas, beans, and mushrooms." Those were all the foods I hated. I didn't dare argue with her though. "Could I at least have a pillow to sit on?" I ventured. "No, I want you to remember this spanking every time you sit down. Last time I left the backs of your thighs alone. This time you will have to oasis in your burning rear." I just sighed and accompanied her for dinner. I was polite. I cleaned my plate and I did the dishes. I wouldn't give her any reason to spank me. The next week was uneventful. I did everything Auntie Christine said. I even offered to help her. In time, the pain in my rear did subside. I didn't want to be spanked ever again. My wish didn't come true though. The first day of school, my luck would run out. But that's another story.